Hello to everyone watching. I'm Reed, and this is News Talk. This episode, we'll be talking about the war in Ukraine, its impact on the rest of the world, and the future of the conflict. For our guest this week, we have Weston, a student here at CPB. Hello, Weston.
Hi, how are you?
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good too. So, today we are talking about the conflict between Ukraine and Russia that's going on right now. It's been going on. So, what sort of background knowledge do you have on that?
I mean, I know that it's been going on for a while, and it's definitely lingered out over the past
it really
few years.
has.
And it's between mainly Russia and Ukraine, but there's been a little bit of turbulence
Both sides have sort of been allied with other countries that are helping them, especially economically so far.
Yeah, I would say that. I don't know too much about this topic, but that's basically the outline of what I know.
Yeah, that's a good start. So it began in February 2022, 3 years ago now. It seems, I don't know. I can't. In some ways, it feels like it's been longer. In some ways, it feels like it's been shorter. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. So although that's when the full scale invasion began, but there's been a lot of tension there because Ukraine was. I mean, the tension between this specific war started around 2014 when Russia took over the region of Crimea, which is near there.
In Ukraine.
Yeah. But there's I think there's been a lot of stuff then, especially since Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union before it collapsed, and Russia's sort of I think kind of wanted to take back some of that,
Yeah.
which I think it might be part of it. And so they invaded Ukraine, and it seemed like they wanted to do it very quickly, because Ukraine's much smaller. They have, right,
Yeah, it's definitely smaller. They thought it'd be an easy win.
Russia's a very big world power, but Ukraine actually stood their ground pretty well, and while they did lose a significant portion of their territory, which is still occupied by Russia, they've held their own pretty well, partially with help of other countries like the Europe and also the US. So recently there has been a bit of a stalemate. There wasn't a whole lot going on. So there was the original attack by Russia, and then there was a period of and then for the past couple years there's been a lot of stalemate. There was a Ukrainian sort of counteroffensive, but still there's not a lot of progress being made. I think that's part of what has made some people in the U.S. sort of question whether we should continue sending money to Ukraine, because we've sent around $120 billion, I believe. What do you think?
I think that we have sent a lot of money. That's a ton of money. But I also think that the money has helped significantly if they've only lost a portion, not the entire thing.
Yeah.
But I also believe that some people are thinking, is the money even helping anymore because we've reached such a stalemate?
Yeah, because it's been going on, for 3 years now with very little progress for a couple of years. And it's we can't really send them military aid soldiers, because that would be an escalation and could lead to a much larger conflict. So we're just sort of stuck either like sending them money or weapons, or it's hard, and humanitarian aid, obviously, like because a lot of civilian buildings like infrastructure and as well as things like hospitals have been targeted by Russia.
Right, and
They've
they're
yeah.
because you can tell they're still trying to gain more ground because they're targeting these specific spots, and it is not really benefiting the well-being of the Ukrainians.
Yeah, for sure. And they've had a lot of like war crimes, like hundreds and hundreds, like
Right. So I think that if Russia brings other people into it, it would be necessary to bring either U.S. or European troops into this.
yeah, that's like what do you think that would be like that could trigger like something more serious like even a nuclear war?
That is a possibility, but if they escalate it, there's that chance that it's going to escalate even more past that, even if only one other person gets involved. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, so it's very like difficult situation because on one hand, how is Ukraine going to get Russia out of its territory or stop or finish the war while having terms of its own? Because Russia has offered some terms for peace, it involves like Ukraine not having a military and handing over a lot of its land, which Ukraine has been pretty unwilling to do. What do you think about that?
I think that Ukraine, as their own country, should be able to make their own decisions about this, but I think they also need to think about their people and what their people would want too.
Yeah.
And I think most people in the world, not just like the U.S. or around this area, wants this war to end. But I also understand the point of view that we don't want Russia gaining more ground.
Yeah, because Russia, they have the very sort of authoritarian, totalitarian, I don't really know the difference between those, but like that's like a very like strong government. No, like they don't let themselves have any sort of political opposition, and they control all the power basically.
Right. So Russia is definitely trying to make sure there's no other power because that's basically what they are. And because they don't want anybody opposing them. And like the Cold War, there's those threats that are right next to them. And it was like, it's a Cold War, right? Like the Cold War was a Cold War. And I think that this is kind of a repeat, but it's not as, you know.
Like between the Russia and the U.S. or
Russia, the U.S., and the places that are in the middle. I think this is
like
more
the other European countries.
Yeah. I think this is more of the U.S. versus Russia than it is Ukraine, only because
Really?
Ukraine is more of a in the middle, being the direct fighters.
Oh, so you think like this is like Russia like sort of like doing this to show power to other like democratic countries? Do you think that's part of it?
I think that could be part of it, and I think somewhere I heard that there's definitely oil deposits that they want. They want more,
Yeah.
like,
A lot of oil in Russia and it's very profitable. Yeah.
so I think they're a little bit power hungry because of this. Like,
Yeah.
in the Cold War when you had a bunch of nuclear weapons and stuff,
Yeah.
and that's part of it.
And
I
now
think.
there's even more which could like really cause like mass destruction, like really like which is like very dangerous. They're super powerful, super deadly, like and it's like like nobody wants to take that risk. Like nobody wants to like make their country have that risk. So that's what's making it really hard to decide how to continue this.
Right, and if we plan to continue this, it's going to be not as good as it is right now, is in the means of stalemate. It's
You
going
mean
to
it's like going to stay a stalemate, or
it's
going
going
to
to
sort of shift
escalate.
the power?
It's going to escalate, and definitely it's going to end up with a lot of people dying because we have more weapons than we did in the past
Yeah, more
wars.
nuclear weapons. Like,
Yeah, so
and also like weapons in general. Like there's a lot of like new warfare that's been going on, like with drones and things like that.
right, and if we think back to Hiroshima and how much damage that did, it's definitely going because we have new technology, better technology
Yeah, and
than
that
we
was
did
like
then.
those are like the only two that have ever gone off like in a war in history. And like if that happens like on a global scale, like the destruction would be
The destruction
so
would be
much
terrible,
greater.
and it could lead to not being like a country there. It'd be like
Yeah.
it would end up pretty badly. I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah. Well, also, like, so we have been like sending like money, and because of these reasons, it's difficult for us to, like, we can't really send like soldiers or direct military aid. We've been sending weapons and funding, humanitarian aid, and some people here think that that shouldn't be happening. Like, what do you like?
I don't have much of an opinion on this. I think our funds have helped, and
Yeah, they did. I think they have too.
it really depends on the situation here. If there's not as much bombing going on, I don't think our funds are really going to help at this moment. But if there is a ton of bombing and warfare still going on, I think we should keep funding them. It
But-
really depends on the
Yeah,
situation.
because a lot of the wars happened during the Biden administration, which sent a lot of like aid. But now in the like Trump administration, which started this year, they've had a much more their view's been much more against sending aid, thinking that their idea being that the aid should be spent in the U.S. instead. What do you think about? Do you think it should be or?
I think we focused on these wars in the Biden administration a lot. We haven't really focused on the U.S. as much as we should have. But I think with the Trump campaign, we're focusing solely on the U.S. and we should be building the relationships between countries so we don't like end up being
So like sort of like a balance, like while we also improve our country, we
Yes.
also keep like aid going to Ukraine
yes.
and other countries that need.
I think we need to maintain these relationships with these other countries by helping them. And we also need to work on the U.S. because other countries are possibly going to take advantage of us helping them. And it could end up worse for us than it is for them.
Like what do you mean by that?
Like, though we have the U.S.'s, I don't really know. Like, it's, the U.S. is...
Like if we send too much and
If we
it
send too
negatively
much
impacts us.
And yeah, if it negatively impacts us, how are we going to cope with that, and how long will it help us regain our money and the things that we lost helping other people? How long is it going to take to regain that?
Yeah, it is a difficult decision. It's hard to keep things like that in balance, and that's been something it's hard to decide. You can't really come to an exact conclusion on it because there's no real exact right answer. But well, recently, last month, President Trump met with President Zelensky of Ukraine, and it didn't go very well. Did you see anything about that, like in the news? Or?
I saw a little bit about it. I haven't seen too much about it, but mainly what I've heard is they didn't get along so much, and Trump could have said some things better.
Yeah, they were both like Trump and his vice president J.D. Vance were both it was very tense between them and Zelensky. They were they were all sort of
Arguing.
they were arguing, there were interruptions.
Right. I think.
And what do you or sorry to interrupt. What do you think that means for like the future of like like both aid and also relations in general with
I think that we definitely got off on the wrong foot with Ukraine. And I think it's going to negatively impact us a little bit, and it could possibly impact Ukraine negatively because of some of our actions as well as the arguing that was going on. But I'm not blaming anyone for the arguing. I think that from both perspectives, we lost a little bit of, what's the word?
yeah.
A little bit of.
Like, cause like I believe Zelensky was like said that like Trump was just trying to like speak over him, while like Vance and Trump were saying that Zelensky was ungrateful for the support that he'd received. So they both sort of are. It's very tense.
I think there's been a ton of miscommunication through all of this, and we should definitely work this out at one point, but right now I think we should focus on the Russian power that is at stake, not our differences as much, because we are still both democracies.
Yeah, and we sort of have like a sort of a common enemy in Russia, because Russia has definitely been, well, I guess we're not like actively in a conflict with Russia right now, because
right now,
President Trump has been, in some cases, been more friendly with Russia and Putin than with Zelensky and Ukraine, which is very much a shift from the Biden administration, which was very harsh against like Russia and pro-Ukraine. So it's sort of like a switch off of that.
Right. The thing that we need to do is we need to keep our enemies close, but not close enough that they can take advantage of us.
Yeah.
But if we don't keep them close enough, we can't really work things out between each other because they don't trust you, nor do they know you. So being close like this could be a little bit dangerous. It could threaten the bonds through the democratic countries.
Yeah, and it's important to keep those up, to like just keep away, like just keep power in the hands of like the people who are affected by. That's sort of what like democracy, it's like that's what it really helps at, like keeping the power in the hands of the people who are actually affected by the issues.
Right. So I think with this stalemate, I think we should take advantage of the stalemate and somehow talk to Putin and Zelensky about this, because they are the ones that are directly part of this.
Yeah, that's been pretty difficult because they don't really like want to meet, but we might just have to like somehow make that happen, because like it's going to be very hard to like come to an agreement. I mean, it has been hard to come to an agreement because it seems that neither Russia or Ukraine are willing to come to any compromise that's been offered so far.
Right. They have their own needs, and neither are willing to listen to each other's needs, because Russia wants to take away the rights of Ukraine, and Ukraine wants their land, and Russia doesn't really want to give them their land.
Yeah, that's well said. So more recently, there's been a development where some Chinese citizens were found fighting for Russia in Ukraine. Do you think China has denied that there are more, or that this is like a large scale thing, but what do you think there could be more to this, or?
I think there might be more to this because we haven't been really close to China right now.
Yeah, and China and Russia have been historically like very close during this war. Like China's been trading with Russia, which has sort of offset the sanctions placed on Russia by other countries.
quite literally, they're pretty close to each other too. So it would be easy for them to like get into Russia and help. But I think if this gets more noticeable and we notice more Chinese troops, I think to level the playing field, we should bring some sort of
Yeah,
military
because
aid.
if like Russia has like escalated, like Russia has threatened if the U.S. brings troops in, that like the war be escalated. But if Russia is bringing in troops from, I believe before Russia has brought in troops from North Korea, so if this is like larger because China has way more people than like North Korea, like a huge amount more. So this could be like on a much larger scale, but we just don't really have the information right now.
Right, and I think a lot of people have this has gone unnoticed for a while, and I think when this starts to escalate, people are going to be astonished, not in a good way, but a bad way, about
Yeah.
how much. Surprised is probably a better word about how bad this is already getting, because we have China coming in and helping, and then we have them trading between each other, and then like what are we supposed to do in this situation? We're supposed to help, yes, but we're also supposed to try to come to a compromise that is both liked by both parties.
Yeah,
And that might
that's
end
where
up
the difficulty lies.
making someone have to surrender, one, because like this it's gonna escalate pretty quickly once it starts getting like really, really, really bad. Like if I don't think I was clear on that part, but when I mean escalate, I mean like full on World War type thing.
Yeah, if like something like that starts to happen, do you think we should sort of try to like intervene and stop it before it happens, or should we like should we try to negotiate peace, or should we?
I
Like,
think we should definitely negotiate peace. Pause
sorry, technical difficulties. We'll continue now.
I think we should intervene if we need to, but we're thinking ahead pretty far. I don't think it's going to escalate for a while.
Yeah, but I think when we do, like us and like I think a lot of other countries like the UN will be ready to try to intercede for peace to prevent a large scale war.
Right, because this war could be bad, and we don't want that. We don't want
Yeah,
bad.
we definitely don't want that. Well, in conclusion, we've talked about a lot of stuff today. We've brought up a lot of really great points, I think. Thank you, Weston, for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's been it's just been interesting talking to you, like getting your view on this. And I also want to just thank everyone listening. So, just to everyone listening, stay informed and come back next week for News Talk.